Did Al say,
Mitch, I gotta tell you, would you ever consider doing Nightmare on Elm Street? Because those movies fucking terrify me. How the fuck you played a guy who got electrocuted and came back, scared the shit out of me.
At some point here. My name is Joe Stuber, writer, producer, host of Comic Book Central. How's everybody's Terrificon been going? You guys having fun this week? Come on, you can do better than that. You can't be tired already. It's only Saturday. We have had some unbelievable Q&As here in this very room. Right now, we're going to welcome two incredible actors who brought unforgettable intensity to the Sons of Anarchy. One, well, we've also loved his work on Lost and Titans. The other, a fan fave from the X-Files, Supergirl, and the Batman. Get ready for stories straight from the heart of the Sons universe. Let's give it up for Titus Welliver and Mitch Pileggi.
How y'all doing?
The stands thing before, but it seems it works a little better maybe if you guys hold on to it. So that's whatever you're comfortable with. We got stands if you want them.
I feel like a game show host.
Hey. Mitch, I think you and I were talking a little bit. It's you told me you don't get to do a lot of these often as Sons of Anarchy because you're coming in as guests. You're shooting at different times. Have you? I'm trying to figure out if you guys even work together.
We did not cross paths on the show.
Okay.
You were the Irish mob.
Yeah.
And I was the white supremacist mob guy.
Yeah, we didn't, which was a disappointment for me because there were, I've been a fan of Mitch's for a long time. He's one of the finest actors of our generation, and so,
I paid him to say that.
That's right.
No, get that $50.
That's right. And a photo op. we did a combo on that. But that was the whole thing, and I was constantly bugging Sutter and saying, "Why can't we cross paths?" And he was like, "Just leave me alone."
Okay, so I'm curious about that sometimes because usually if there's like an actor or a guest, or sometimes will actors go in and just say, hey, can I do a scene or something with that? Like you kind of put that bug in their ear sometimes, or I guess depends on where you're at in your career.
Like you said, it doesn't always, it doesn't register. They're like, yeah, whatever, just say your lines and shut up.
Can you direct an episode and then make it happen? Is that like
directing? That's something I'm too lazy to even approach that. I don't know. Have you done any directing?
Well, full disclosure, I think during my my run on Bosch, much to the director's chagrins, I was coming in and saying, let's move the camera over here, maybe we do this. But it's just because you're invested in it. It's not because you're trying to usurp somebody's authority or anything like that. But when you play a character for a while, it's sort of, as a director, it is thankless to a certain degree because you're kind of a hired gun. You're coming in and the character is established and the tone of the show, and so it's a little bit, that's the only time you can kind of actually say, you're not the boss of me. I know the character better. And also it didn't hurt that I had Michael Connelly standing right next to me, and I could always be like, well, he said it was okay.
How tricky is that then too? Because you're talking about like episodic television and you're going in, especially if you've been on a show for a little while, you do get to know the character a little bit more because you're spending hours and hours and days and weeks and months with them. But then all of a sudden, like you mentioned, the director might just be coming in for that one episode. And they're coming in almost, like a guest star or something, and they're, not used to it. How tricky is that then to go to like a film set where the director is kind of like, that's it. Like it's the director's medium on film. Are you able to say anything like that, or do you just kind of like, I'm backing off, it's a film set?
Right, Mitch?
And that's for either one of you, however you approach it.
I think film's a little bit different. I did do a very small part on one of the Transformers movies, and I worked with Michael Bay, and I just watched him, And he's like, he's kinetic. He's just constantly going. He's like, if they're not ready to shoot something with the cameras, he'll pick up a camera and just start shooting inserts. And I just started laughing at him. And he goes, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "I'm laughing at you." I said, "You're crazy."
He is.
He's a maniac.
He is.
Yeah.
But I have to say, my experience with Bay was that, because I did one of the Transformers movies too, and he was actually really user-friendly. I mean, he's a screamer. He's a screamer and a yeller, and he fires people on the spot, and then, but it only lasts for about 5 minutes. And by his own, he will admit that he's a bit OCD and a bit ADD, but when he gets locked into the zone, but that's the kind of thing he'll do. That's the OCD. If something's not moving, he'll pick it up and do it himself.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool to see someone that's that invested.
He's really invested, and it was. I mean, it made me laugh, but it was like I was so impressed because he wasn't wasting a minute. He wasn't wasting a second. It was something that was constantly going on with him, and he's got somebody there standing with a camera that he can just hand him and just go. He has to be shooting something constantly.
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's funny. Spielberg is kind of the same way. Years ago, I did a series that Spielberg produced, and he would come and hang out on the set. So I would have lunch with him like every day, which for me, nerd cinephile that I am, I was in hog heaven. But we'd be shooting, and he would say, "Oh, we're such and such," and they go, "Oh, well, they're shooting second unit." And he'd go, "Oh, well, where?" "Oh, well, they're on the other stage." And Spielberg would go over and operate the camera on second unit, not direct it. He would just operate the camera. Yeah. You had a director, but he wanted to play with the camera. So that's sort of like the passion and the true dedication of people like that. We see them as being so larger than life because they are so incredibly successful, yet those are the kind of guys that you want to work with because they do that.
That's the true storyteller of the person, though, isn't it? I mean, that's why could you say a Steven Spielberg film, Michael Bay production? I mean, you see that in there. Everything about them is up on the screen.
All of it.
Yeah. I'm going to go way back here a little bit before we get to some of the different roles yet. Just the interest in acting to begin with. Do you recall just how you got bitten by the acting bug? And this is for both of you, but that initial spark, and then what were some of those early roles, or do you recall your first paid gig?
Well, Mitch, you can go first.
Well,
He's a lot younger than I am.
I had a whole other career before I started acting, and I had been overseas working on DoD contracts with the military for a long time in the Middle East, and I was in Iran when the revolution started, and that was it for me. I said I'm going to go back and find something else that's a little bit more sane. Well.
How's that going?
Silly me.
Yeah.
But I thought I was kind of kicking around trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I had done some high school stuff and a little bit in college, and nothing serious. But then I just figured, I went down to Austin and started doing community theater, and I got on stage and I got my first laugh, and baby, that was it. It's like it was like a drug. You get your first laugh, your first applause, and it's you get that. It was very heady, and I go, okay, well, this is what I want to do. So I did. I continued to do stage, and I did a lot of it. I was doing back-to-back plays down there, and then I finally got to the point where I thought. And I left my wife, and I said, I'm going to L.A. to try to be an actor, and she said, have a good time. I went out there, and I kind of just, it's tough when you first go out. And I fortunately had a brother who had a company that he let me work for, and whenever I had an audition, they just let me go. And then one day I walked into a room, and I met Wes Craven. And that was probably one of the biggest moments of my career. And I had no idea that I was walking into a room and that he was going to be there. I didn't even know he was involved in the movie that I was auditioning for. I was auditioning for a really small part, and I ended up getting the main killer in it because he saw that I was crazier than shit. So.
Did you give him any indication of that, or
Oh
was it
man,
just
I
a
tell you,
visual
I
thing
scared
that-
the shit out of everybody in the room. It was like they were, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was like, okay, I finally got to release, got to release everything, and I did. I let it go.
Wow.
And so he gave me this great role, and I got some attention from it, and got a better agent from it. And then I walked into a room and met Chris Carter, and that was, that was. So those are the two most important people in my career, and it was, we've lost Wes, unfortunately. I loved him to death, and I got to work with him 4 times after Shocker, and then Chris, we text each other all the time and still talk, and it's very, very, very big, important people in my life.
And Titus, you?
Well, I originally my career path was to be a fine artist, to be a painter. I'm the son of Neil Welliver, who was a very well-known, prolific American abstract expressionist, and so from a young age, both of my parents were artists. That's what I really wanted to do, and I suppose it's like when that's what is around you all the time. That does not mean that if you are, the child of an artist, that you have any kind of a gift. But 2 out of my 5 brothers, myself and my older brother, both drew and could paint, and that's what I wanted to do. And so I started formal training, studying with my father when I was 12, and my father at that time, his ascent was well on its way, but he was also an academic. He ran both the Graduate School of Fine Arts at Yale and the Graduate School of Fine Arts at University of Pennsylvania. So I was getting this training. Now, it's one thing when you're a student at a university, it's another thing when it's your dad. And my father was a stern taskmaster, so there were no shortcuts. He was pretty hard on me. So by the time I was going to art school, I'd already gone through all this formal training, and I got there and there wasn't anything they could teach me. And it's not because I was so incredibly talented that I knew everything, but I already had the technical skills, and it was about trying to find what I wanted to paint, what I did. So I went to art school at a school in Vermont called Bennington College, which was a very progressive, hippy-dippy liberal arts school, which had, the ratio was 12 women to every male, and I lost my mind. And a lot of accessibility to, the drinking age was 18, and there were other distractions, and I just didn't go to class. I was like John Belushi in Animal House. I was on the 10-year college program. And after a, kind of an abysmal year, my father kind of sat me down. He was not happy with me at all, and said, let me ask you a question. When you're not thinking about drinking beer and smoking grass and beautiful girls, what do you think about? And I said, acting. And he went, then that's what you got to do. And he was living in Maine at the time, and he gave me a one-way bus ticket back to New York City and $400. And he said, good luck. And so those were the dog years, and did my thing. And, like Mitch, I'd probably done about 75 plays before I ever got in front of a camera. And my first job was a walk-on playing a dick in this movie, Navy SEALs. Not a great film, but that's where I met Charlie Sheen and Bill Paxton and Michael Biehn and Dennis Haysbert. And they treated me like I was an equal. And I literally came in and I was a day player. And that gave me a different taste of the theater. There's nothing like performing. Like Mitch said, you get the laugh, you get that response, that visceral feeling with a live audience. And I got in front of a camera and I didn't know what I was doing. And this guy who cast me, the director, had seen me in a production of American Buffalo off Broadway. And I did one take, and he came up and he said, "You're a fine actor." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I thought he's going to say, "But you're fired." And he said, "That which you do in the theater is this big." And he said, "What we're doing here is that big." And I got it. Well, that was you kind of learn as you go. It's on the job training. And then it just kind of, you go sort of from one thing and you're guest starring here and you're guest starring there, and then you get a role that in some shape or form gives you the opportunity to demonstrate kind of what you can do. And people take notice. And that was, sort of went from there and then connected with David Milch and Stephen Bochco and forged that working relationship and did several shows with them, and and thus it continues. But we all, in the same way, Wes Craven, I only met him one time, but I can say, and Mitch will, it echoes what he said, he was possibly one of the kindest and gentlest and genuine human beings, and he makes the most terrifying films on the planet. But he had a demeanor and an aura of kindness and class, and as an actor, you're terrified, particularly a young actor, when you go into a room, and I've never felt more. He sensed my anxiety when I came in, and he put me at ease, and he ended up casting me. I can't remember what it was, and then I got double pneumonia, and I couldn't do it. But I would see him after that, and my career had started to take off, and he was always effusively warm. He would say, "I saw such and such, and I saw that," and he went, "We'll do something." And sadly, I never got to work with him. But I know, from people who worked with Wes, and that he was not unlike Stephen Bochco and David Milch. When he liked you, and he clearly he loved Mitch and got Mitch's genius. And when you connect with people like that, they want to continue. You want to work together. So you asked me what time it is, and I just told you how to make a watch. So I apologize.
No, that's a great story, because it's almost like he was keeping an eye on you too after all that. That's amazing. Do either of you have any acting inspirations, like people, like actors that you looked up to, or just movies or TV shows that you gravitated toward?
No.
Mitch Pileggi.
Lee Marvin was a big favorite of mine. I was, and Gene Hackman was, those are just, to me, I guess I can identify with them kind of like, as a matter of fact, I did a movie with Al Pacino down in Puerto Rico, and I was talking to him about, I told him, I said, I have to tell you, I've been stealing from you for my whole career, and he just laughed, and he goes, "No, you got your own thing." He looked at me and he goes, "You got that Lee Marvin thing," and I was like, "Man,
wow.
what?" That just like, I almost started crying. But I said, "Thank you, that means so much to me," because I have so much respect for his career, and he was just he was a badass, and he was so good, and he had so much fun. He looked like he was having so much fun in his roles, and I think that's what I try to aspire to do. Is sometimes I have a little bit too much fun, and when I'm shooting, and it annoys some of the other actors. But it's like that's the way I get myself rolling into the scene.
Did Al say,
Mitch, I gotta tell you, would you ever consider doing Nightmare on Elm Street? Because those movies fucking terrify me. How the fuck? You played a guy who got electrocuted and came back, scared the shit out of me.
I heard you had that talent, man.
I didn't do that for applause. I can't. I have
awesome.
Al Pacino Tourette's.
And
so
how many others are in the repertoire here?
I just worked with Al too. I just did a film that's coming out in the fall, and he's the sweetest.
He's so sweet.
He would hug me and kiss me all the time after takes, You have to imagine as a young actor, I mean, he was a great inspiration. I think everybody, worth their salt. He was a hero. And he was so incredibly generous as an actor.
He really was. He just, yeah.
And I had met him a couple times before, and I got onto the set, and I did this thing when I was doing Deadwood years ago. It was a kind of my version of a rap gift to David Milch, in which we had a behind-the-scenes crew that were doing a making of Deadwood documentary for whatever, like the box set or something like that. And so I did a really spot-on impression of David Milch. So I came up with this crazy idea, and I had this professional film crew there. And so what I did was, the role of Al Swearingen, for those of you who know Deadwood, was played by Ian McShane. Brilliant, right? One of the great jobs I ever had. I got to go to a master class of acting every day and work with Ian, who, once again, the great ones are all generous, right? Because they got nothing to prove, and they make you better. They want to make you better, if they think you're any good. And so I did basically meetings between David Milch, like he was interviewing these actors for the role of Swearingen. And so I did Al Pacino, Robert Duvall, Christopher Walken, and Robert De Niro, both sides of the camera of this thing, and then we showed it at the wrap party, and then ultimately HBO bought it and they put it on the box set. And whatever, it was kind of just a fun thing. So my first day of work, I walk on set, and this director says to me, "Oh, Al is really excited. I showed him the Deadwood thing." And I'm doing an impression of Al Pacino in this. And I was mortified. And I thought he was kidding. And I went, "Yeah, right." And he went, No. He really liked it. And I was getting ready to step on the set to work with him. And now all of a sudden, my joy and my excitement goes, I'm so mortified and terrified. I'm like, this guy is going to think that I am the biggest asshole on the planet. And here's my opportunity, and he automatically has a dislike for me. So I come onto the set kind of sheepishly, and Al is sitting in his chair on the set. And I walk on, and the director says, "Al, this is Titus." And Al turns around and he goes, "Harry fucking Bosch." And then I went, "I'm gonna be okay." And we worked together, and we did our stuff. And and he would always hold my arm. He was and would regale me with stories from Serpico and Dog Day Afternoon. This is like crack for an actor. And he was very open. He would tell you stories whether you asked him to or not. But he was obsessed with YouTube, and he would say, "Do you ever watch the YouTube?" And I said, "I don't." And he calls it the YouTube, which made me laugh. So when he would go to his trailer, and then he would come back on the set, and I'd go, "Al, what have you been doing?" "I was just watching this video where this guy was making a souffle. Do you like souffle?" And I go, "Yeah, I like." "Have you ever had a lobster crab meat souffle?" "No, I haven't had." "Well, now I know how to make one." And at the end of the day, and when they called me out and said, "This is a picture wrap on Titus," and I walked with Al back to his trailer and said goodbye, and he gave me a big hug and a kiss, and then he kind of put me out like he does with John Cazale in Godfather 2, and I thought I was going to get the kiss of death. And he was very sweet, and he just looked at me and he went, "By the way, you do me better than me." With that big smile.
Wow.
You know what? That was a moment.
Man, what a gift.
That was
perfect.
So before I told you how to make a watch, that was a grandfather clock.
I was hoping it was
Sorry,
gonna
I got to
end
learn
with-
how to speak in sound bites. Mitch is much better.
I was hoping it
Listen,
was
I'm
going to end
loving
with you
every
having a
second of it.
souffle with Al Pacino, like making a souffle. We're going to talk a little bit about Sons of Anarchy. Of course, that's what the panel is. What drew each of you to your roles on Sons of Anarchy?
They said yes. No, I tell you, I walked in the room and Kurt was, every time that I've walked into an audition and they say, hey, I'm a big fan of the X-Files, I'm like, that's the kiss of death for me. Oh. And it's like I've never gotten a job where they've said that. And as soon as I walked in the room, it's the first thing that came out of Kurt's mouth, and I was like, "Oh, fuck me! I might as well just leave," But I ended up getting it, and so it was. And I mean, this guy was a white supremacist meth dealing pimp. It was a trifecta for you.
No method acting.
And I thought, it was very. There were some uncomfortable moments when they were putting the swastika on my neck and all the Aryan tattoos on my arms and stuff like that. It was they'd ask me at the end of the day, they go, you want to, if I was shooting the next day, you want to leave them on so we can, don't have to put them on tomorrow? And I says, yeah, no. Yeah, I'm not going home with a swastika on my neck for my 9-year-old daughter to look at and go, Daddy, what's that?
Or just even driving in traffic if you get stopped or something.
I know, right?
Like, I'm screwed.
But
what's the problem, Officer Goldstein?
But it was a really interesting role to play, and I got to make a great turn with the character at the end of the show. I think he's one of the few people still alive and charming. Yeah, and it was, that's
an achievement.
It was brilliant. He starts out as this white supremacist who just hates Hispanics and hates everything, and which I think he was a total phony. I think he was just trying to find somebody to be his friend. But at the end of it, he ends up marrying this Hispanic girl, and I thought it was brilliant. And it was yeah. So, but it was just he said yes.
And Titus?
Well, I got a call on a Wednesday from my manager, and he said, you just got an offer to do Sons of Anarchy. And I went, oh, cool, because I had met Sutter for the pilot. And I just I didn't feel right for the part. It was the Elvis impersonator. I'm drawing a blank. This is bad.
Boone.
Yeah, Boone.
Boone's character. Mark Boone.
Yeah, Mark Boone's character, and I just didn't. Yeah, Mark Boone Jr., who killed it, of course. But I just didn't feel it didn't work anyway. And I said, "Oh, cool, man. So, am I one of the Sons, or am I an opposing, club?" And he said, "No, you're an IRA gun runner." And I went, "Oh, that's cool." And he said, "How's your Irish accent?" And I said, "I've got a great dialect coach, and so I'll get it together. When do I start?" And he said, "You're on a plane tomorrow morning, out of New York, and then you arrive in the afternoon. You go straight from the plane to a costume fitting, and then you start shooting the next morning on Friday." And I went, "Okay." So I have Irish family. I have Irish cousins, live in Ireland and everything. And so in a panic, I was calling them and saying, "How would you say this?" And then I realized it was sort of a fool's errand. I just thought, I'm going to do my best to try to just do it. Yeah. But I knew that I would have to stay in the accent in order to be able to kind of pull it off. So when I got on set, and I didn't know any of those guys and didn't know the director or anybody, and I was in the accent the whole time. And it was about 2 weeks later, I was having lunch with all the guys, Charlie Hunnam and Flanagan and Ron Perlman. We're all eating, and we're kind of telling funny stories and laughing. And I start to tell the story, but now it's a couple of weeks in, so I'm comfortable, and I just start speaking my own voice. And Perlman goes, "I got to stop you." "What?" And he goes, "You do a great fucking American accent." And so I sort of look at him and I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, "Right, Charlie? Am I right? That's a great fucking American accent." And I go, I am American." And he goes, "Yeah, right." And I go, "No, I'm American. You got an Irish tattoo?" And I go, "No, yeah, but I'm Irish, but Irish background. I'm not." And Charlie Hunnam looks at me and he goes, "Are you fucking schizophrenic?" Anyway, the long and the short of it was, that's how that came to be, and it was a crazy character. And I was just telling Mitch, it's the only thing, bit of work that my mother wouldn't watch. My mother called me up after the night of an episode came on, and she said, "Hi, darling, I started that Sons of Anarchy last night." And she said, "It got to a scene where you and your lieutenant have this man tied to a chair, and you've been torturing him by pulling his teeth out to extract information." And she said, "And he's unconscious, and then you woke him out of his unconscious state only to look him in the eye, to shoot him in the face and kill him." And the actor in me and I went, "Yeah, I came up with that idea." and my mother went, "I won't be watching that show." But she loved Deadwood with all that. Deadwood didn't bother her. But it was good. That was a great group of people to work with.
It really
I mean,
was.
it was for all that you saw, all the violence and the insanity that was there. It was a tight-knit group of people, and we laughed, despite what we were shooting in between. It was a fun group. It was a little testosterone filled. Sometimes people
there was a lot of testosterone on
they
that
got
set.
confused that they were really in a motorcycle club, and I was kind of like, that's a costume. If you wear that, off campus, you'll get killed by one of the pagans or somebody. Don't do that. But it was great. It was, and I love Sutter, and I stayed in touch with him over the years, and it was a great experience. But it definitely, for a minute, it took me about 6 months, almost a year, to kind of get the stink of Jimmy O off of me, because I got offered a lot of crazy, violent, psychopath roles, and I just and I needed to work. And I was like, okay, I'll play him, but can he have a limp and a lisp or something? I don't want to be too mean, but. Yeah, it was fun.
I love the fact that your mom had to recount the whole scene to you, as if you weren't there doing it. It's just just in case you forgot what you did.
She just wanted to,
drive that home.
Was hitting it with this is the reason I love you, but I can't watch you.
It's fair.
Commit these atrocities.
You gents want to take some audience questions?
I'm so proud of you, my boy.
Some audience questions?
Hi, this question is for Titus. As an actor, what was your key to unlocking the character of Bosch?
Well, it's funny. When I first met Michael Connelly, he said to me, "Is there anything that you want to change about the character, or anything that doesn't ring true?" And I said, "No, nothing. If it ain't broke, there's no need to fix it." Really more for me, because the source material, that character is so clear on the page. It really just, for me, became, how do I portray it? And I think the hardest part of it was, we kind of I had to, and thankfully I had Connelly in my corner, fight for these things, because the internal life of Harry Bosch is demonstrated, right, and displayed in the narrative, right? So Connelly's telling you how Harry's feeling, how he's thinking, and he's not an emotionally demonstrative guy. And in all of the books, when we see him going through the murder books, which is where he finds stuff to solve the cases, and we had a scene, and Amazon was kind of bandying the idea of having voiceover narration, which I was adamantly opposed to, as was Connelly. I just said, no, this is neo-noir, and it's not, it won't work. It'll be terrible. But I really love the murder book stuff, and that's where we really find Harry in his place. And so the network note guys were like, great. So how does he commune with, write some stuff? And I went, oh, no, he doesn't speak. It's him communing with the photographs, and they went, so there's no dialogue? And I said, no, he's listening to jazz and he's looking at the book. He went, no, we're not going to do that. Well, and I begged him. I said, please, just let us shoot like a test, more or less. And it really worked, and it became a hallmark of the show. And that's where you really got into who he was. That's where you kind of saw, which is sort of interesting because as actors, right, we like to talk, as you can tell. And that was how I found that character, was all of that stuff. When you play a guy who's trying to conceal all of that, some interesting shit can happen as an actor that you don't expect. So that's I made the Tower of London clock in that response.
I appreciate it, and I also enjoy your narration of the books that you've been doing.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Next.
Hi, Mireia from Barcelona. So nice to see you here.
Good to see you.
A question for both. Is there something that you always do to prepare for a role, no matter what the character is?
You know, you try to, for me, it's just I try to bring as much truth to what I'm doing and try to make it as organic as possible and just in my mind put myself in the place, who I'm talking to, what I'm doing, what's around me, if there's this is here, how that affects, what I'm, if I look at it in the course of the scene, it's just bringing the reality. Reality to me is so important in what you do and I'm not always successful doing that because I'm lazy as shit, and it just sometimes I'm like, just learn the lines and say them. But if you, and that's another thing, is learning the lines. If you got the lines so good where you don't even have to worry about if it's just there, it makes it so much easier to bring all that stuff that I'm talking about, to bring your soul and your heart and your mind and everything else, your being, into what you're doing as a character. And the longer you play a character, the easier it becomes, and it becomes more natural. And I did a character on just a guest star on Criminal Minds, and it was very different from anything that I've ever played before. And I got cast because the actor that they had cast had to drop out for some reason. The director, I had worked with the director before, and he called me up and he said, would you do this role? And he said, you're gonna have to make yourself very small because and I said, and it's really emotionally small. And so that's because I'm a pretty big guy, and so I had to bring that aspect of the character into being. And so that was probably, I did more preparation and more mental, just really visualization is huge for me, and when I'm doing a character, and I had to really I literally I would stand in a corner and just stare into the corner before we started rolling, and just put myself into this character, and I think it's probably one of my favorite things that I've ever done. I watch it because I'm not always a big fan of my work. As a matter of fact, my favorite episodes of the X-Files are ones that I'm not in. So.
Really? Thanks. And you, Titus?
I'm sort of the same school. I always say, look, if the playwright has done a good job, that's your job, is to facilitate what they've put on the paper. And you can bring nuance and things performance-wise, but that's your job, right? And so, of course, some things you have to do research, right? If I'm going to play a Navy SEAL, I'm going to spend time with Navy SEALs. I'm going to, I did that with Transformers. The training was set up, and so I had real team guys that were teaching me how to move and their style of weapons handling, which is very different than the Marine Corps or, SF 5th Group. And then everybody has their own sort of nuance and tics to the way that they handle weapons or do things or speak. So you do research if it's needed, and then, like Mitch said, you learn the dialogue, and then you want to let it go, because I don't ever want to be caught acting, and so as a rule, it's not that I won't, but I really don't like to do more than 2 takes of certainly, close ups, because I'm not an actor that wants to. I could probably never work with David Fincher because he does 175, 200 takes, and I can't work that way, because once I've got the thing out there, then I'll start acting and I'll start second guessing. But I know some people that really need to get a run at it, and I don't, not because I'm so great, but you come prepared. We are of a school, and some of these youngsters say, "Oh, you're old school." Well, no, we're badass school. It's called being prepared. Show up, know your lines, show up on time, know what the fuck you're doing, learn people's names, treat people with respect, and that's your job. Because at the end of the day, it's make-believe, right? I mean, it's make-believe. You've just got big, great sets, but it's Halloween. It's fun. Now, I don't want to deny or diminish all of the work that in your technique and that you learn to do that. But at the end of the day, that's what it's really all about: listening and knowing what that character's doing from moment to moment. And the other stuff is kind of window dressing. But to speak to, you're talking about Lee Marvin, guys who are, when you see movies with Lee Marvin and Gene Hackman and Steve McQueen, all 3 of them were United States Marines. When you watch their films and they're handling weapons, you know that they've actually handled weapons. And so that, for me, became an inspiration as an actor. I thought, well, if I have to play a cop or if I have to play a military guy, and it changes, you have to do that homework. You have to invest in that, because otherwise, anybody who's in the military, they see the way you pick up a weapon or draw a weapon or reload a weapon. It will ruin the film or the television show for them. They just go, ugh. And so that's your job, and you do your homework, and then you kind of forget it, because it possesses you, it inhabits you, and that's when it's good. When it doesn't, it means the writing is really shitty most of the time.
And that really doesn't make a big difference. You got bad writing, man. It's like you got to bust your ass to try to do something with it.
Yeah, you try to elevate it,
and then they see you busting your ass trying to do something with it. So it's just you just hope you get good writing.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, David Lawrence, Tallinn, Connecticut. Titus, we talked beginning of your day yesterday. It was good. And after all that, you just answered her question, and I got to take you back to the Irish gun runner, because all that preparation that you do to make sure that we're that you're ready for a scene, that you're ready, and that you're not overacting or what have you. You were able to, and you talked about maybe doing some research and calling your friends or your cousins in Ireland, and yet you came in, and I got to tell you, when I saw you in there, and I'd been watching Bosch. I saw Bosch before Sons of Anarchy, so I was all bought into Bosch. And I saw the Irish gun runner, and I had to go look you up to find out whether you were Irish or American. So I get where Ron Perlman was coming from. I mean, it's fantastic. So how did you actually accomplish that? You kind of glossed over. How did you get from on the airplane to on the set and complete that journey the way you did?
I just kind of, I'll be honest with you, I just kept trying to remember my grandmother speaking to me and things like that. Yeah. Now, full disclosure, my accent is terrible in that show. My cousins would literally call me from Ireland.
Okay.
Because we Irish have a sense of humor. And they'd be like, yeah, Titus, I was watching a fucking episode last night, and there was a couple of scenes. 1 minute you were from Donegal, and the next one you were from Belfast, and then I think you were from southwestern Ireland. I couldn't put a fucking pin in the map where you were supposed to be from. So, You know, you're being very generous. I think that I fooled some of the American audience. I mean, I've never been. I think somebody, actually, I know somebody. I didn't actually see it, but somebody made a snarky comment on one of the social media platforms, saying that was the worst Irish accent ever. And my middle son was about 9 years old, and he called me up, and he was really, and Daddy, you need to go on Twitter or Twitter or whatever the hell it was, and you need to sort that guy out. And I went, no, because he's kind of right. And he went, no, Dad, that's not right. And I said, here's what I'll tell you, what I've learned. In dealing with social media, there are people out there who have way too much free time on their hands, and they're mean-spirited, and they ultimately just want to be assholes. To respond to them is to dignify them. So I don't respond. And, you know, that's really esoteric for a 9-year-old kid, because my son was looking at me like, you know, you should find out where they live and go punch them. But thank you. I'm glad I convinced you.
It's a very healthy attitude you have. I hope that translates over.
Yeah. So hello, my name is Huel, and I'm from Hamden, Connecticut. And I want to kind of cheat and ask two questions. But the first question really quickly is, I know both of you have done voiceover work, and I was just curious how you compare that to doing actual, like, you know, in front of camera work versus behind the camera work in a voice studio. And the other question is, both of you have played iconic characters in terms of, you know, in these various series. And so I know, because you are playing those characters, and many times in these series, there may be like different directors that are coming in. Have you ever had a director come in and say, you need to do it this way, but in your mind, you're like, no, that's not what this character would do, or that's not what this character would say? Have you ever had those kind of, I don't want to say disagreements or run-ins, but I was just curious in terms of like just different directors that are coming in various series? No. I don't have a director ever come. As a matter of fact, I got to the point where it's like directors just quit trying to direct me. I'd love to be directed, but it's like I think I scared the shit out of them so much that they were afraid to direct me. So they just kind of were. They didn't say, look this way or that way. It's like, 'cause they knew I was going to look the way I was going to look. As far as voice work, you were asking about if we.
Compared to the live action stuff.
Man, I love doing voice work. I wish I could do more. I'd love to do more, and because it's so easy, you just go. I mean, you don't have to memorize your lines, but you can just, and you don't got to even take a shower or take a, it's like, or shave or anything. You just stand in front of a microphone and nobody sees you, so it doesn't really matter what you look like.
You're Commissioner Gordon. I mean, you have to.
Well, I did Commissioner Gordon on, in the Batman thing.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah, and I've actually got an audition that I have to have in by Monday that I'm supposed to do, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with that.
Something we're gonna love.
It's a Berenstein movie.
Oh, okay.
Berenstein
cool.
Bears thing. And I don't get called.
To be the dad?
No, to be one of the bad guy. A bad guy.
A bad bear?
No, I don't even know. Are they all bears? I don't even know the Bears.
We're not going to get any calls from the studio or anything, are we?
It's a spin-off. It's going to be Mitch Pileggi is a bad bear.
That's intriguing. Tell us more.
Bears of Anarchy.
No more Mr. Bad Bear.
No honey, sucker.
But I'd love to do more voice work. I really would, and because I'd put a studio in my house, and I'd never leave my house. I barely leave it as it is now.
We want to see you. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thank you.
No, I was just
Pull
going
that mic
to. I'll
down
say
for you.
the same
There you
thing
go, yeah.
that you were saying.
All the way. There you go. You got it.
Which, just to answer, just to add on, I think that any good director, and I find that the really good directors that I've worked with, the smart ones, they cast you because they know what you can do. And they trust you enough to kind of stay out of your way. And if a scene isn't working, if you when you've been doing this long enough, you know when it's not working. So most really good directors just kind of, you do your thing and then they cut and they move on. But there's also directors that micromanage, and particularly with a lot of younger directors, they feel that they have to justify their paycheck by micromanaging and doing stuff. And I have an expression for that, or I would say a response to that when those things come up. I simply say, go get your fucking shine box. And
Shine my shoes.
yeah, and that goes over like a lead balloon. But anyway.
So you have an Al Pacino and you have a Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But Mitch is right. I mean, voiceover stuff is fun because you break all the rules that you can't do on camera. You can be so broad and so big and crazy and be in your underwear and flip-flops and wearing a baseball hat backwards because nobody's seeing you. But that stuff is fun.
It's so much fun.
It's really fun.
You had one last question here? Yep. No pressure? No pressure?
Made me forget my question.
Oh, no. I'm sure you'll remember it.
Hi, Rose from Queens, New York. On Sons of Anarchy, like you said, it's dress up, and even though you kind of research the part or whatever it is, you have a lot of motorcycles in there. Have you enjoyed the feel of the motorcycle off screen?
Yeah, I didn't ride. I was kind of bummed out because I used to ride motorcycles and then I gave them up, when there's too many people with cell phones now. So motorcycle riding is no longer a pleasure as it used to be. That whole idea of being, out and free in a wide open space and everything, there was a kind of feeling of liberation that came with that, and it became, I lost all passion and pleasure. I had 3 close calls, and all 3 of them were people that were on cell phones, and I thought, I'm not going to ride anymore. So that's one of the reasons that when he was like, you're an IRA gun runner, and I was like, does he ride a bike? No. And I was like, that's okay. Just so you guys know, Ron Perlman,
Don't you get to tell him.
terrified of motorcycles.
You can't ride a
hates
motorcycle.
motorcycles.
You can't ride a motorcycle to save his life. It's hilarious watching him. He'd lay it down
and crash,
and then he'd just stomp off. And it was hilarious watching that. I bet. Yeah, Darby had a Suburban. He didn't have a motorcycle either. So I was bummed.
I'm a motorcycle rider, so that's.
Are you? Yeah. Listen. My midlife crisis was a Harley Davidson, and as Titus said, it's like in the course of 1 week, I had people turning in front of me at intersections. I almost laid it down twice, and I went and bought a Ford F-150. So that was.
Thank you for your question. I'm going to close it out real quick. Look, it's a comic book convention. I'm a comic booky guy. I've got to ask you real quick if you can tell us your best experience on Supergirl, and also just approaching the character of Lex Luthor, something so iconic. How did you lean into that character? So go first.
Best experience. I don't know if there was any best experience. I just remember there was one scene that I had shooting with Melissa. And I was supposed to be running. We were running at each other, and the floor was very slippery. And I said, I'm slipping. I need something. So they put something on the bottom of my feet. Well, we were running at each other, and when I went to stop, man, I stopped, and I just went flying straight at her. And if I hadn't tucked, I know how to fall. And if I hadn't tucked and rolled the way I did, I would have just crushed her. And she looks down at me, she goes, that was the most graceful fall I've ever seen in my life.
Doing your own stunts.
Oh, it wasn't intentional, man. I didn't believe me.
And then leaning into Lex Luthor. I mean, my goodness, the history. You talk about Gene Hackman as one of the actors.
Yeah.
Well,
that's daunting, right?
Yeah,
but then you also, once again, it's you got to do what you got to do. I mean, you're not looking to replicate somebody else's performance that was done so brilliantly, right? And Titans was a very dark adult show. I mean, the first time I watched it, and Robin said, "Fuck Batman." I went, okay, this isn't Adam West and Burt Ward. Alfred would have sent him to bed with no sandwich for even saying F Batman.
With a spanking.
Yeah. No. Yes. Master Grayson, you're to bed with no food. So I got excited, but I had something else that I was going to do, and so I had a really, really long beard. So I said I have to keep the beard. And he kind of went, oh, and I went, I don't have a choice. I said, but I think it'll kind of work. It'll give him a kind of gravitas. I'm going to look like I belong on a cough drop box, but that's okay. But I'm a nerd. I'm a massive nerd, comic book collector, and so I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of Lex Luthor, but I knew enough. But I talked this producer into a coma about Lex Luthor. He was just basically calling to say, welcome to the show, and we're really excited, and da-da-da-da-da, and do you have any ideas? And, that's clearly, as I've just demonstrated, that's not something you want to do.
Catnip to an actor, man.
But it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun to play a character like that. And when you play these characters, they're larger than life, and a supervillain. They operate with, it's kind of like playing a mob guy, right? Those people, they're total sociopaths. They operate with impunity. They have no regard for anyone else. And we're, Mitch and I are civilized human beings for the most part, right? And so when you get to do something like that, it's crazy fun. And I had a blast doing that.
We loved watching. We love everything you gents are doing. Thank you so much for joining us, to taking the time, and have an amazing rest of Terrificon. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up. Titus Welliver, Mitch Pileggi, thank you so much.